Well, for more on this, Fidelis Mbah joins us live in the studio. Fidelis, this is a very interesting connection which you actually pointed out in your news story. Tell us a little bit more about Operation Entebbe.
Well, some Palestinians and Germans hijacked an Air France plane, which was carrying over 100 Israelis, and they diverted the plane to Entebbe in Uganda. And so the Israelis had to send, a military men to actually go after these hijackers. They came, and the commando operation was carried out, by the Israeli forces, led by the younger brother of Benjamin Netanyahu. So during that operation, he was killed, and he was the only Israeli that was killed. The hijackers were killed, and about 20 Ugandan soldiers and civilians were also killed.
So over 100 Israeli or
hostages were, but the hostages, about 100 Israeli hostages were actually freed by the commandos.
And like you pointed out, he was the only member of Israel's defense forces, the special forces, to have been killed in an operation.
Yes, and he was the leader of the operation, and he died during that. So it's actually beyond the fact that, for the Israelis, he's been honored a couple of times posthumously, but for Benjamin Netanyahu, it's a personal thing, because this is the very first time he's going to where his brother was being killed.
Mm-hmm. Now we're seeing an interest. Benjamin Netanyahu is on a 4-day nation tour of East Africa. Why are we seeing Israel all of a sudden increase its interest in this part of the world?
Well, for Israel, Africa is increasingly becoming strategic for Israel, to Israel for two reasons. One, diplomacy, because they need Africa's diplomatic support, at the UN, especially because of, the case about their continued occupation of the Gaza Strip and their dealings with Palestinians. So they need that African vote. And now what they're trying to do is offer services, offer some kind of support, increase their relations with African countries so that when it gets to the UN and they need their support, they will easily vote for them. And then on the other hand, the dynamics is gradually changing, the economic dynamics in Africa. You have Turkey now making inroads to Africa. You have India making inroads. You have China taking, like a chunk of, the African trade. Unlike before, where you had the old order of having Britain, US, and Israel. So Israel is now trying to see what they can get out of it. And with increasing extremism, especially across Nigeria, Somalia, and even Uganda, and some other African countries where Al-Shabaab, Boko Haram, and Al-Qaeda is actually having having a sort of a field day. So Israel defense technology is needed, and these African countries would gradually, wholeheartedly welcome the Israeli defense system so that they will be able to tackle this extremism across the continent.
All right, Fidelis, we thank you very much for that analysis.